You're still awake, aren't you? That's all right. This space is made for nights just like this. Nights when your body is calm, but your mind wanders down roads with no names. Close your eyes now. Let your shoulders loosen. You don't have to think about anything at all. Just let yourself drift with the faintest whisper from a place far away, a place where moonlight gilds every grain of sand, a place where time does not flow, but lingers. You are standing by the Nile, not in a dream, but real. Beneath your feet, the sand is warm and soft, carrying the scent of resin, incense, and footsteps long since brushed away by the desert wind. In front of you, the river glides quietly, reflecting silver light from the moon. And in the distance, stone columns of an ancient temple rise, as though carved this very morning, though they have slept for 3,000 years. You step inside. It is cool, silent. No voices. Only the gentle rhythm of your own breath. On the walls, strange and haunting images, and lines of hieroglyphs no one has ever taught you. Yet somehow you understand. Not with logic, but with something deeper. A quiet connection. As if you have been here before. As if you belong here. You are not just an observer. You are part of the story. A witness to a glorious age. A moment buried beneath centuries of sand. Now alive again. Inside your sleep, and at the center of it all, there is a woman. She stands there. No crown, no jewels. Only steady eyes and the hands that once carried the power of Upper and Lower Egypt. She does not wait for permission. She does not ask for recognition. She walks to the throne on her own, not as a queen, but as a true pharaoh. Her name is Hatshepsut. In a world where power belonged only to men, she dared to do the unthinkable. She put on the royal robe, the double crown, the false beard of kingship, and led her nation into prosperity, not with swords, but with wisdom, vision, and an eternal longing for greatness. She built temples. She carved her name into stone. She told the story of her divine birth, not to be remembered, but to never be forgotten. And yet, they tried to erase her. They shattered her statues, scraped her name from the walls, filled the temples with other names. They thought they could remove a soul from history. But tonight, you are bringing her back. Just let the story slip away with your breath. For what needs to remain will remain in your dreams. And if this voice has eased you tonight, if this journey has brought you closer to sleep, you can show it by pressing the like button. That way I'll know you are here, listening, feeling. And if you want nights like this again, gentle and timeless, subscribe to this channel, so when you cannot sleep, this place will always be waiting for you. Finally, leave a whisper in the comments. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are? Sometimes a single line can connect souls who are all drifting together between history and dreams. So now, breathe slowly, drift softly. Let the river carry you away, because history is not what has passed. History is what you still remember in your sleep. Chapter 1. When the Valley Still Slept. You are standing in a valley still wrapped in a long sleep. The sky is painted in deep blue, where moonlight drifts and lays itself across the quiet Nile. The silence is so complete that even the breath of wind sounds like a whisper from an ancient god. You have not arrived here from the present. You have only returned, as if your soul had once belonged to this land, and is now searching for a memory still lingering in the sand. Before your eyes, Egypt lies untouched in the light of early dawn. Mud brick houses stand close together. Boats rest at the riverbank, their wooden frames reflecting the pale shimmer of the moon. Temple towers stretch upward like arms reaching for the heavens. Everything follows an order, each part moving to the rhythm of kingship and faith. Yet behind this sense of stability, you feel a long silence, an emptiness that history has not yet dared to name. People live beneath the rule of the Pharaoh. They offer gifts to the gods. They till the fields along the river. They believe in the endless turning of time, believing Egypt will always remain the same. But you know something is waiting to awaken. Not in the beating of war drums, not in the clash of swords, but in the quiet breath of a woman's soul, a soul that has never been allowed to ascend the throne. You walk through the old marketplace. A wife arranges beans on a woven mat. A mother carries her child as she cuts grain in a field scented with the morning breeze. A weaver moves her hands back and forth, threads fine as the flow of time itself. All of it seems ordinary, yet you notice something else hidden there. These lives sustain the kingdom, they nurture, they build. Yet their names are never carved into stone. They live in the shadows of grand stories about men, and you know, from those shadows, a light will emerge. You step into the palace, stone columns listening to the words of their tutors. But far away, in a corner, a little girl sits quietly. She reads signs on a clay tablet, her eyes brighter than the flickering oil lamp beside her. She does not read because she is told to. She reads because she longs to hear the stories of the gods with her own eyes. She is not like the other children. She is silent, but her silence carries strength. You know this girl will not allow herself to remain a shadow. You see her walk through the garden of lotus. Her fingers brush the petals still wet with dew. Her face turns toward the sky, not in simple admiration, but in search of an answer. She grows like the moon itself, each day a little fuller, silent, yet undeniable. From that silence, a different path begins to appear, a path the kingdom has never prepared for, a path history has never recorded. You know Egypt is waiting for a change, not brought by weapons, not by rebellion, but by a pair of eyes daring to face the emptiness, by a heart willing to breathe with the rhythm of earth and sky. Tonight you have witnessed the beginning of a soul that will rewrite what power means, what memory means, and what the presence of a woman can mean in a world thought to belong only to men. And when the first sunlight strikes the tip of the stone tower, lighting up the cracks in the wall, you hear a name spoken for the first time. Hatshepsut. A sound not loud, a call no one expected. Yet you know, from this moment forward, Egypt will never sleep as it once did. Chapter 2. The Princess with Divine Bloodline. When dawn quietly spread across the rooftops of Thebes, and the first light slipped through the stone openings to touch the reed walls, a small but extraordinary event took place. A cry rose in the silence, clear and soft, as delicate as the sound of palm leaves brushing together in the breeze. It was not the cry of a child born into a throne already promised, but the voice of one who would shake the very meaning of power for an entire civilization. You are there in the chamber. You see careful hands wrapping silk cloth around the tiny body. You see the eyes of the mother shining in the dim light of night that has not yet faded. They are not the eyes of a woman who has simply given birth. They hold a secret larger than words. That child is Hatshepsut. She is born with the blood of Pharaoh Thutmose I and sheltered by Queen Ahmose. The blood of kings runs through her veins, but with every breath it seems as though the presence of the gods has entered as well. No one speaks it aloud, yet in the stillness, everyone feels something different. In every breath of the infant, there is both gentleness and strength, as if destiny has placed within. In the wide palace with towering columns and walls painted in radiant colors, she moves slowly, already at ease in the sacred spaces. She does not run like other children. She sits beside clay tablets, her eyes fixed on the strange symbols, memorizing their complex shapes, though still so young. People say it is only play, but you know. In her gaze lies a hunger that never ends. It is not play. It is the beginning of intellect. At sunrise, she follows her mother to the temple of Amun. The stone steps are still cold with dew. Priests in white cloth chant solemn prayers. Women follow behind, carrying lotus flowers, resin, round loaves of bread. She walks among them, small, unnoticed. But you notice. She is not simply walking. She is observing. She listens to the deep hum of prayer, watches every gesture of the priests, breathes in the smoke curling upward to the temple roof. Her eyes shine brighter than the lamps burning in the hall, as if engraving into her mind something not meant to inspire fear, but to be understood. You see her in the garden. The breeze stirs through the date palms. The sweet scent of ripe fruit fills the air. She sits beside the lotus pond, touches the water with her hand, sending ripples across the surface. No one else is there, but she whispers. You listen. You do not hear words. You only feel. She is speaking not to people, but to the spirit of the land itself. A young girl, yet her eyes already reach beyond what her years should allow. As she grows, her difference becomes clearer. In the palace, they think she will one day become the wife of a prince, a queen who stands behind the throne like countless women before her. But you know, she will not accept being behind. She learns more, listens more, observes more. In every gesture, she shows her subtlety. When disputes arise in the palace, she does not speak much. A few gentle words are enough to calm the tension. They think it is kindness, but you know. It is the instinct of a leader already alive in her blood, waiting to awaken. One night, when the moon rests above the stone towers, she leaves her chamber, barefoot on cold brick. You follow her, not with steps, but with spirit. She carries a small lamp and walks into the temple of Amun, where statues rise taller than 10 men, where common people are never allowed alone. She kneels. She does not beg, she does not plead. She only places her hand upon the stone and closes her eyes. You hear no words, only silence. Yet in that silence, there seems to be an answer. They see her eyes, no longer like those of a child. They are deeper, steadier, like a column planted deep into the ground. The older priests search through ancient texts. They find faint hieroglyphs about female pharaohs nearly forgotten. They read. They fall silent. And then they look at her. They say nothing, but their eyes hold a hidden acknowledgement. You see clearly that from the start, Hatshepsut carried two parts within her. One part is the child held by parents, living within the rituals already set. The other part is a flame that refuses to go out, a flame even the gods would not deny. She did not choose this. She was born with it. You watch her mature, step by step, day by day, not hurried, not slow, like the moon itself, rounding little by little until no one can ignore it. Every step she takes seems ordinary, yet within it lies the extraordinary. Every glance appears gentle, yet leaves others with both respect and caution. And you know it will not be long before she stands where no one ever imagined. Not as a shadow, not as a woman behind, but as a pharaoh in her own right. You breathe deeply, catching the scent of resin from the trees, the damp earth near the river, the soft sound of water drifting through the night. You know history is shifting. You know you are witnessing a beginning that cannot be undone. She has arrived. She carries the blood of a king and the breath of the gods. A bloodline that will rewrite what was once believed, unchanging. Chapter 3. When the king passed and the regency began. You are still there in the palace, filled with the scent of resin and the light pouring through narrow openings. Time has passed, and the quiet-eyed princess has become a grown woman. Hatshepsut has been given in marriage to Thutmose II, her half-brother, a union meant to keep the throne within the bloodline. No one in the court finds it strange, for Egypt has long been familiar with such arrangements. But you, who have watched her since birth, know that this marriage is only a veil. Behind it waits a greater destiny, ready to be revealed. Thutmose II is not as strong as his father. His reign is short. Whispers in the court say his health is weak, that he cannot carry the burden of the vast kingdom, that he leans on his wife more than anyone dares to admit. You have seen in the ceremonies that when Thutmose sits on the throne, Hatshepsut stands beside him, her gaze not as one who follows, but as one who observes and adjusts. You are still there in the dream of ancient Egypt, where moonlight and sand weave together into a veil that covers time. Your breath mingles with the desert wind, slow and soft. And when you listen more closely, you hear the sounds in the palace have changed. No longer the laughter in gardens, no longer the bright conversations of peaceful days. The air now sinks heavy, as if the sky has lost a fragment of its light. Pharaoh Thutmose II, the brother and husband of Hatshepsut, has passed away. The news spreads through the capital, flowing down narrow streets, echoing under rooftops. The people are silent. The courtiers murmur. But in the eyes of Hatshepsut you see no panic, only a thin mist of sorrow, and then a decisive light. You witness quiet footsteps along stone corridors. Servants move slowly, carrying ritual objects wrapped in white cloth. There is no wailing, no noise. Only the steady beat of funeral drums falling into space like drops into a deep well. Egypt has known the passing of kings, but this time is different. This time the emptiness of the throne is too clear. This time that emptiness has been placed into the hands of a woman. You see Hatshepsut standing in mourning dress, her eyes not fixed on the body already wrapped, but looking farther. They are not the eyes of a widow consumed by grief, nor the eyes of a queen who stands at the edge. They are the eyes of one who knows she stands at the threshold of a path no other dares to walk. There is sorrow in them, but there is clarity too. And you sense she has long prepared for this moment. Thutmose III, son of Thutmose II by another wife, is only a child. He does not yet know how to rule, how to read meaning in the statues of gods, how to place his hand on a map to decide the fate of both Upper and Lower Egypt. And so Hatshepsut steps forward, not with loud declaration, but with the presence already familiar to all. She assumes the role of regent. The people are told that power belongs to the young king, but truly, their eyes turn to her. You walk with her in those days. You enter the royal council where old courtiers sit in circles, debating and arguing. They speak of what must be done, who will hold the army, who will guard the granaries, who will lead the rituals. But when Hatshepsut speaks, her voice is not raised, not forceful. It is only clear. It is only steady. And all fall silent. They do not wish to admit it, but you know they are already used to following her. You see her walk through the palace, then beyond the walls. She goes to the granary where people line up for rations during drought. She speaks to each one, not with the distance of a pharaoh on a throne, but with the concern that eases their hearts. She enters the temple and lays her hand on each column, showing the gods that Egypt still stands firm. Every step is not only the step of a regent, it is the step of a ruler in the form of a woman. You watch Thutmose III growing. He is still a boy, still running in gardens, still unaware of the burdens awaiting him. While he remains a child, Hatshepsut holds the kingdom together. The people see their grain secure, and they are grateful. Merchants see their ships sail, and they are reassured. Priests see their temples alight, and they are silent. All grow accustomed to the truth that the real power rests with Hatshepsut. In the long nights when the moonlight falls on the lotus pond, you see her sit alone. Her hands rest gently on her knees, her eyes looking far away. She knows that one day Thutmose III will grow and may demand his rule. But she also knows that by then her mark will be too deep to erase. Without words, you understand she is telling herself, "I will do what none have done." You follow her to Karnak. The temple is vast, the columns high, torches casting light on statues of the gods. Priests kneel, no longer daring to ask whether these rites are for a man or a woman. They see only that within her lies legitimacy, already granted by the divine. You hear the prayers, but the voice in your mind whispers something else. She is not pleading. She is reminding the gods that they chose her at birth. Time continues. The hot winds and the cool winds pass. Each year, Thutmose III grows older, but power does not return to his hands. It remains with Hatshepsut, as natural as the sun rising after night. In the eyes of the people, she has long been Pharaoh, though no one dares to speak it aloud. You breathe with the gentle wind and feel the world itself adjusting to a new truth. A female regent, yet truly a sovereign. And you understand, this is only the beginning. The beginning of a reign that will enter legend not by war, but by wisdom and resolve. Chapter 4. The Child Pharaoh and the Powerful Aunt. You are still there, where the air of morning has softened but lingers within the cold stone walls. After the passing of Thutmose II, the palace has grown used to the presence of Hatshepsut as the pillar holding the kingdom steady. Yet, beside her, there is always a small child too young to understand what kingship means, or what it means to carry the fate of both lands. That child is Thutmose III, her nephew, the heir in name, but in truth, still taking his first steps into the world of power. You see the contrast clearly. On one side, a boy who can restore order with a single look and a quiet word. The people of Egypt know the name of the boy, but when they need someone to lean on, their gaze turns to Hatshepsut. You follow her into the council gatherings. Before her sits a long line of nobles, priests, and generals, all aware that the true king is still too small. No one dares speak it. They only turn their eyes toward Hatshepsut. She sits beside the boy, her hand resting lightly on the chair, her posture upright, her voice even as the rhythm of the Nile. Each decision she gives is met with nods, not because of the child on the throne, but because of the woman beside him. You see the tenderness in her eyes when she looks at Thutmose III. It is not rivalry, not intent to erase him, but the care of one who protects while guiding. She lets the boy take part in ceremonies, lets him stand in the glow of torches, so the people can see a young king present. But behind every gesture is her hand, ensuring nothing falls into disorder. On great festival days, Thutmose III wears a bright cloak and walks to the sound of music and song. Yet you know each step has been prepared by his aunt. When he stumbles, she bends slightly and whispers a few words. When he forgets a prayer, she speaks with him so the crowd does not notice. Outsiders see a young king leading, but you and she both know the truth. Some nights she leads him into the palace courtyard, where moonlight covers the white stone. She points to the stars and tells him that the ancestors are watching. She tells him about the pharaohs before him, about how they built and how they chose. The boy listens, his eyes wide, but you know he does not yet understand. And you see that she is not only a regent, she is a bridge, a hand shaping, a lamp lighting a dim path. You walk with them to Karnak. Inside the vast temple, hundreds of columns stand like a forest of stone. Priests kneel and chant prayers for the young pharaoh. But when the rite ends, their eyes turn to Hatshepsut. In the silence, you hear what they do not say. They know it is she who keeps the gods appeased and the people calm. You see the change among the people. They still call Thutmose III king, but when they seek reassurance, they speak of Hatshepsut. They trust her as surely as they trust the rising sun. In every story and in every whisper, her image slowly covers the image of her nephew. In quiet nights, she sits alone beside the lotus pond. The water mirrors the moonlight, and her face within it. You see thoughtfulness and certainty. She knows one day Thutmose III. You feel the silence, but within it runs a powerful current. It is the current carrying Hatshepsut farther. No longer only a powerful aunt, no longer only a regent, but slowly becoming Pharaoh in truth. And you understand, as you stand in the shadow of the long night, that the story has turned a new page. A page where a child still sits on the throne. But a greater page, deeper and stronger, belongs to the woman who already knows who she is and where she is destined to go. Chapter 5. The Woman Who Became Pharaoh. You are still there in the vastness of ancient Egypt, where the wind carries the scent of resin and sand, and where the funeral drums of the past have faded away. The palace has found its rhythm again. The people continue to bring offerings, the merchants continue their trade, and the Nile flows tirelessly, as if it had never known the death of a king. Yet you know that within this calm, a rising wave is growing, It does not rise with the clash of weapons, but with whispers spreading from the palace to the market, from the market to the fields, from the fields to the very steps of Karnak. People begin to speak of Hatshepsut not only as the powerful aunt, not only as the regent, but as a true pharaoh. You see her eyes, and they no longer hide her intention. She still stands beside Thutmose III, and still allows the child to sit on the throne. Yet you sense clearly that the throne already belongs to her. Not because she seized it, but because no one else could hold it steady. The people need stability. The priests need rituals to continue, and the nobles need a hand to balance their interests. All of this only she can provide. You hear secret conversations. Some protest, saying a woman cannot wear the crown. Some fear that the gods will be angered. Yet you also hear other voices, softer but persistent. They say that Amun has chosen her, that the blood of kings runs through her, that she has proven herself more worthy than any other. Slowly, the protests fade into whispers, carried away by the wind. You see the priests at Karnak begin to carve new inscriptions. They tell that the god Amun appeared to Queen Amoza, the mother of Hatshepsut, in a dream. They tell that the god breathed his essence into her, so that Hatshepsut was born. New reliefs are carved, showing this divine birth. She is not only the daughter of a pharaoh, she is the daughter of a god. The tale, though legend, becomes the key that opens a path no woman had ever walked. The path to the throne. You stand in Karnak during a great. She wears the royal cloak, and beneath her chin, the false beard of kings gleams in the torchlight. You hear murmurs ripple across the temple and then fall into silence. No one laughs, no one mocks. They only look. They look for a long time. And then one kneels, another kneels, then another, and soon the whole temple kneels. In that moment, Egypt accepts what had never been. You hear the voice of Hatshepsut. It is not loud, not rushed, but each word feels carved into stone. She declares she will rule in the place of the child too young to bear it, but not only as a substitute, she will reign as Pharaoh. A legitimate Pharaoh, not in shadows but in light. She speaks of Amun, of the ancestors, of the Nile. She does not ask permission, she simply affirms. And you know that from that moment, Egypt has a pharaoh who is a woman. You see the reaction of the nobles. Some frown, but do not dare to stand against her. Some are silent, then nod, knowing that without her the court would fall into chaos. They need her more than they will admit. You see the priests bow longer than usual, as if letting the gods themselves bear witness to their consent. And you see the people outside shouting with joy, not because they grasp every turn of politics, but because they see the one they trust standing firm upon the throne. You remember her as a child, sitting quietly in the palace corner with observant eyes. Now, those eyes have brought her here. No longer behind, no longer a shadow. She has stepped forward, writing her name into history, carving it into stone, setting it into the river of time. You follow her out of the temple after the ceremony. Moonlight and torchlight blend and rest upon her shoulders. Though she wears the attire of men, she still carries herself as herself. There is no need to hide, no need to pretend, for from this moment, she has nothing left to prove. She is Pharaoh. You feel the weight of the moment. It is not only the shift of a dynasty, but the shift of how the world sees power. Power is no longer confined by gender, no longer chained to old laws. It is only this simple truth. When a human being carries wisdom, vision, and resolve, nothing can keep them from rising. And you know the road ahead for her will not be easy. There will be challenges, opponents, conspiracies. But in this moment, in the stillness after the cheers, you see her standing strong like a pillar of stone in the desert. And you understand that history has opened a new chapter, a chapter whose name will echo forever. Hatshepsut, the woman. Having stepped into the light, she does not wish only to hold the throne for the present. She wishes to carve her name into stone, so that generations yet unborn, even after 1,000 years, will hear her voice in every wall, every column, every stair of an immortal temple. And you know that dream will take shape in the valley on the west bank of the Nile, where the sun sinks behind sandstone cliffs. You follow her there. The sun burns bright, the wind carries heat. But in her eyes it is not an empty plain, it is a vast canvas where she will paint her vision of eternity. You see architects, stonecutters, and artists gathering, and in their midst stands Hatshepsut, not only as a pharaoh giving orders, but as one planting seeds of immortality. The temple is called Deir el-Bahari, the holy place by the cliff. Stones are brought from far quarries, columns raised with sweat and faith. Yet above all, it is vision that surpasses time. You see rows of pillars rising in terraces, stretching like arms open to the sun. You see broad stairways leading people upward from earth to the realm nearer the gods. You walk through corridors. On the walls, stories are carved, not of battles, not of fire, but of a voyage to Punt. You see great ships of cedar, trees of incense, monkeys, and strange treasures, all carved so vividly that if you touched them, you would expect them to move. And you understand, Hatshepsut does not wish to be remembered by war. She wishes to be remembered by peace, by trade, by prosperity brought to her people. In the sanctuary, you see her image not as queen, but as Pharaoh, standing equal with the gods. Reliefs show her beside Amun, receiving the crown from Hathor, sheltered by Horus. None of it is chance. It is declaration. She is not only human, she is the bridge between earth and the divine. You listen to the hammer and chisel ringing in the valley. Hundreds work day after day, year after year. Amid the sound, you hear the heartbeat of a dream. Each strike into stone is a prayer. Each column raised is a breath. You see the sweat of workers falling on the ground, but their eyes shine, for they know they are building more than for one life. They are building for eternity. You step into the temple court. Columns tower above you. The sun throws long shadows across the floor. The wind drifts through, carrying whispers. You close your eyes and feel that this place is not only structure, it is a hymn written in stone that will sing through the centuries. You see Hatshepsut walking the hall, her hand rests. At the first ceremony held here, you stand among the crowd. Incense rises thick. Priests chant, their voices echoing against columns and out into the cliffs. People bow low. Hatshepsut climbs the highest stair. She offers gifts to Amun, not only as pharaoh, but as a daughter of the god. She speaks that this temple is not hers alone. It belongs to Egypt, to the gods, to the people. It is proof that greatness lies not in conquest, but in creation, You look around. The people are silent, then bow together. You hear sighs and whispers. They have believed. They have accepted. And in their hearts, the name Hatshepsut has become eternal. You breathe softly. Night falls over the valley. Torchlight casts the shadow of the temple upon the cliff, like a dream burning bright in darkness. You know this temple will stand through centuries. It will watch the floods of the Nile, the reigns of other pharaohs, the rise and fall of sand. But it will remain, and it will keep whispering one truth: that once there was a woman who dared to carve her name into stone and turn herself into eternity. You open your eyes. You know you have crossed into another chapter of this dream of history. And in the silence of night, you hear a faint whisper rising from the stone walls themselves. The name sounds again: Hatshepsut. Chapter 7. The story of divine birth, when the gods became allies. You are still there, standing in the soft darkness of the valley, where the temple of Deir el-Bahari has just received its first carvings. The breath of stone and the fragrance of incense blend together in the air. You hear the wind touching the cliffs like an invisible hand, keeping a slow rhythm. And you know the power of Hatshepsut does not end with stone. She does not wish only to carve her name. She wishes to turn her very existence into a story the gods themselves must acknowledge. In those days you hear the whispers. Some say Hatshepsut is only a woman borrowing power. Some say the throne still belongs to the boy, Thutmose III. Some say her presence defies the gods. And within that doubt, she shapes a story. Not with sword or decree, but with myth. You see the priests gather in Karnak. They bring papyrus, ink, sacred seals. They open old writings, brushing away dust. From those lines a new tale is woven. They tell that Amun, the great god, once took the form of Pharaoh Thutmose I. In the quiet of the palace he came to Queen Ahmose. He breathed his divine spirit into her. It says the throne was not taken by her hand, but given by the gods from the beginning. The people hear this story, and they believe. They are used to gods walking among humans, used to legends of gods shaping destiny. And when this tale spreads, no one dares to say she is a usurper. She is no longer only a woman. She is the embodiment of the divine. You see her enter Karnak during a great festival. The priests read the new tale aloud, their voices echoing through the temple. The people crowd the courtyards, eyes shining. When the prayers end, they shout the name of Amun, and then the name of the Pharaoh. The two names flow together as if they are one. In the nights that follow, you see torchlight upon the temple walls where the reliefs are finished. You step close and place your hand on the stone. It is cold, but you feel a heat flowing inside. It is the power of the story. A story does not need to be true, but once carved in stone, it becomes truth for all who live under the sky. You see nobles fall silent. They no longer oppose. If the god has chosen, what else can they do but follow? You see priests bow longer before her. If she is child of a god, then to resist her is to resist heaven. You see the people telling new tales to each other. They say she was born with light around her, that every step she took as a child was guided by a divine hand. The whispers spread like fire in dry grass. You sit with her by the lotus pond one quiet night. The water is still like glass. She does not speak, only gazes into the surface. You know she understands the value of the tale. It is not only legend, it is a bridge. A bridge from doubt to faith. A bridge that carries a woman to the throne not beneath suspicion, but beneath acceptance. And you understand this is the greatest human strength. Not the strength of weapons, but the strength of story. A story powerful enough can make a human immortal. A story sacred enough can turn mortal into divine. Hatshepsut has woven her own tale into legacy. You breathe deeply, the scent of resin in the air, the soft wind on your skin. You know from this moment not only stone and temples, but myth itself has become her ally. And you hear, echoing through the valley, an endless whisper. Hatshepsut, daughter of Amun. Chapter 8. The Voyage to Punt, a Dream of Prosperity. You are still within the gentle light of Karnak, where the story of divine birth has silenced every doubt. Hatshepsut is now Pharaoh not only by crown, but by myth. Yet she knows that even the strongest tale must be nourished by proof. The people must see. You see dozens of wooden vessels being built at the docks. The scent of resin mixes with fresh-cut timber and fills the air. The workers labor with calloused hands, yet shining eyes. They know this is not just a journey. It is the voyage to Punt, the legendary land far to the south, said to hold sweet incense, precious woods, gold, spices, and wondrous creatures. Punt, land of the gods, seen as the source of wealth. You stand at the harbor, watching Hatshepsut walk among the ships. She wears a white cloak that catches the sun and glows. She rests her hand on a vessel, her eyes distant. Not the eyes of one sending farewells, but the eyes of one already seeing the future. She knows if the fleet returns with treasures, her throne will stand as firm as the cliffs. And you know this is wisdom. Instead of proving by war, she proves by prosperity. You hear drums rise and sailors shout. The ships cut the current, white sails swelling as they set for the sea. You stand on the shore and feel the wind carrying salt. The sun sinks, leaving a red trail across the water, and you know Egypt is breathing with that fleet. The journey is long. The sails strain with wind, the oars beat in rhythm. On deck, the sailors sing to push away their weariness. You hear timbers creak and water split. You look up and see gulls flying with them as guides. At night, the sky opens wide with stars. The navigator lifts his eyes to constellations and guides the course. Each night, the heavens carry them farther, and you, within the dream, stand on the deck and feel each wave lifting. At last, Punt rises on the horizon. Not dream, but real, glowing in morning light. You see golden sand, rows of incense trees spreading their sweet aroma. You see huts of the people, paths winding into forest. The people of Punt come to greet, warm and open. They bring resins, gold, ivory, leopard skins, monkeys, strange gifts of their land. They smile, they trade, their eyes bright. You see the bustle of exchange. Egyptians offer pottery, beads, jewels, woven cloth. Punt returns with treasures of their earth. There is no war, no blood, only trust and sharing. You hear laughter, children running, horses neighing. The air is filled with joy, and you know this moment is proof stronger than any battle. Returning to Egypt, the fleet carries abundance. The air is rich with incense. Gold gleams beneath the sun. Trees of resin are planted in Egyptian soil to grow as living testimony. The people rejoice. They see not only wealth, but the blessing of the gods upon Hatshepsut. You see scenes of trade and the procession of treasure. The carvings are so vivid you feel you are there. And you know Hatshepsut has done what few pharaohs ever did. She carved not conquest, but prosperity. The people come to the temple. They lift their eyes to the walls, whispering the tale to one another. Children listen and imagine faraway lands. The elders hear and feel peace in their hearts. All believe Egypt has entered an age of divine favor, and all link it to the name Hatshepsut. You sit upon the stone steps and watch light fall through the columns. In the wind you hear the sound of waves, the beat of oars, the laughter of the Punt, the cheers of Egyptians welcoming the fleet. All sounds weave together into a gentle song. And within that song you hear the hidden melody of peace. You breathe slowly and let it sink into you. You see clearly that Hatshepsut has proven her throne not only with myth, but with reality. She gives her people safety, her priests reverence, her nobles wealth. She shows the world that a woman can rule not by the sword, but by the path of prosperity. And you know the voyage to Punt is not only trade, it is a message. A message carved deep into history, so that 1,000 years later, when people look upon the temple walls, they will still hear the waves of that journey. Waves whispering that once there was a pharaoh who replaced fire with fragrance, replaced war with peace, replaced fear with prosperity. Chapter 9. Reigning in peace, the gentle power. You still hear the echo of waves from the voyage to Punt. The cheers of the people as the fleet returned have not yet faded from memory. But now Egypt moves into a new rhythm. No longer tense with expectation, no longer filled with whispers of doubt. The land breathes slowly in peace. And you realize that the reign of Hatshepsut has entered its brightest season. You look around and see the fields along the Nile shining green. The floods rise in their cycle and leave rich soil behind. Farmers work in the morning sun, their backs wet with sweat, yet their eyes calm. They know this year will bring enough grain. They know they will not fear war or raiders. And when they lift their heads, they see new temples rising, new roads being opened. They whisper that under Pharaoh Hatshepsut, Egypt is truly alive again. You walk through the building sites. Everywhere is the sound of hammers striking stone and axes shaping wood. Hundreds of workers labor with rough hands and steady, and when she nods, the entire site is lifted with energy. You see her way of rule, not loud, not violent. She chooses the path of gentleness that seeps deep. She does not expand with war, she expands with trade. She does not take lives, she gives prosperity. In a world where power is measured by weapons, she proves that true strength flows from peace. You hear children laughing in the streets. You hear merchants calling in the market. You hear music in festivals. People no longer live in fear. They know tomorrow will be better than today. They know their children will grow with enough, and they speak her name with gratitude. To them, she is not only Pharaoh, she is mother of the land. You enter Karnak during a grand ceremony. The air is filled with incense. Hundreds of torches burn, their flames dancing on the columns. Priests chant praises to Amun and to Pharaoh. The voices swell and strike the stone walls, creating a mighty hymn. You look up and see new inscriptions carved, telling of prosperity, of building, of voyages of trade. And you know history is being written in peace. You step outside onto the high stair of the temple. The wind carries fragrance from the incense trees planted from Punt. Below, people gather, holding lotus flowers, singing, dancing. The sun shines upon them, flashing on gold jewelry until the courtyard itself glows. And you know this is the image of a golden age. You think of past kings who built their names on conquest and blood spilled on battlefields. But here you see a different way, a way some may call soft, but in truth, the strongest of all. For peace gives trust, trade gives wealth, and monuments give immortality. Together they form a legacy that cannot be broken. You breathe slowly and feel the warmth of the afternoon sun. You hear distant songs and steady footsteps. And you understand that under Hatshepsut, Egypt has reached a rare balance. A balance not born of fear, but of faith. In that moment, you know you are living in Egypt's most beautiful time. A time history will call the Golden Age. And at its center is a woman who has shown that softness can become the greatest power. You close your eyes. The wind still moves. The Nile still flows. And within you a whisper rises that peace is not temporary silence. Peace, the one who turned her vision into reality, who shaped her ideas into columns, who transformed her dreams into halls of eternity. His name is Senamut. You see him for the first time in the palace, a man not born of noble blood, not carrying royal lineage, yet his eyes burn with light. He walks without pride, yet with unshaken confidence. He comes to Hatshepsut when she needs someone to turn her will into structure, and from that moment their destinies are bound. Senamut is not only an architect, he is mind and hands, the one who can hear each detail in her words and render them into form, into wall, into roof, into temple. When Hatshepsut dreams of a monument carved into stone, it is Senamut who stands before her with drawings in his hands and faraway vision in his gaze, and he says it can be done. You walk into the site of Deir el-Bahari, and you see him among the workers. He points, he adjusts, he teaches. He listens to hammer and chisel, and in his mind each strike becomes part of a vast music. He is not building only a temple, he is composing a hymn. And when you look at Hatshepsut, you see she is at peace in his presence. You hear whispers in the palace. They say between Hatshepsut and Senamut there is something beyond pharaoh and servant, beyond ruler and architect. They say his eyes, when they rest on her, carry not only reverence, but warmth. They say she trusts him as she trusts her own heart. No record writes it, no decree confirms it. But you who walk within this dream can feel it. The bond does not need words. It exists in the way they stand before a wall together, in the way they look at a column, in the way they smile when an idea becomes form. You walk among the works that carry his mark, the terraces of Deir el-Bahari with their layers of pillars, the finely carved tombs, the corridors filled with images of gods and pharaoh. In every line you sense a soul not simply obeying, but understanding. Stories are told that within some walls he left secret marks. No one knows what they mean. Perhaps they are signs of self, perhaps messages to the future, perhaps silent traces of a feeling never spoken. And when you place your hand upon those carvings in this dream, you almost hear whispers reaching from thousands of years away. You see Hatshepsut walk with Senenmut through the site. She asks, he answers. She smiles, he nods. Simple moments, yet you know they reveal absolute trust. A pharaoh may doubt everyone, but she placed her faith in one man. That man was Senenmut. You hear people telling stories in the streets. They admire him, for from humble birth he stepped into the heart of empire. They gossip, they imagine, but they also respect. For no Hatshepsut sits on the throne, radiant in Pharaoh's attire. Beside her, no one sees Senenmut sitting in honor. But you see him in every wall, in every column, in every shadow of stone. He does not need to sit near the throne, for the throne itself rests within the frame he built with his mind. You breathe slowly and feel the strength of that bond. It does not need to be written. It does not need recognition. It only needs to exist. And you know this is why history cannot forget his name, even though he was never Pharaoh. Night falls. You walk the long hall of the temple, torchlight casting shadows across the pillars. You hear the winds stir, repeating the story. A pharaoh and an architect. One who dared to trust, and one who dared to fulfill. A connection beyond boundary. And you know in every stone still standing before you, their breath remains. You close your eyes, and in the darkness you hear a whisper, clear and soft. Hatshepsut, Senenmut. Two names together, without need of inscription or monument, for history itself has carved them into the eternal memory of Egypt. Chapter 11. Shadows After Light. Jealousy and Intrigues. You still hear the echo of chisels striking stone, the songs of workers, the murmurs of prayers in the temples. Egypt under Hatshepsut feels like a garden in full bloom, yet in every garden, shadows wait. Darkness, even small, finds a way to creep in when the light shines too long. And you know that her reign, though wrapped in peace, could not escape this truth. You hear whispers in the palace corridors. At first they are small, careless words, that the throne was never meant for a woman, that Thutmose III is growing and will demand his place, that the grand temples are wasteful, more about Hatshepsut carving her own name than serving the land. These whispers slip through walls, reach noble ears, and stir envy in hidden hearts. You step into a meeting of the royal council. Hatshepsut sits at the highest seat, her gaze steady, her voice still calm. Yet you notice eyes that no longer bow with devotion. Behind them lies quiet discontent. They obey, but their spirits resist. And you know that plots often begin in silence. You watch Thutmose III, once a boy, now a young man. His eyes are sharper, his stride stronger. In him runs the blood of pharaohs, and you see a fire rising inside, not fully against Hatshepsut, but fed by the whispers around him. They say his throne has been stolen. They plant within him the feeling of being only a shadow in his own You walk the halls of Deir el-Bahari at night. No more songs of workers, only the wind through columns. You feel the heavy silence. The reliefs still glow with images of Hatshepsut beside Amun, but in the dark, you hear murmurs. That one day these carvings will be struck away, that her name will be erased from stone. History can be carved into walls, but it can also be scraped away by jealous hands. You see that Hatshepsut knows these words exist, yet she does not tremble. She walks with her head high, her eyes bright. She understands the brighter the light, the deeper the shadow. She chooses not to answer with violence. She chooses to keep building, to let monuments and prosperity speak for her. Yet you know, there are nights she cannot sleep. You sit with her by the lotus pond in quiet evening. The water lies still as glass. The wind stirs petals. Moonlight touches her face. Her eyes are deeper than before, heavy with thought. She knows Thutmose is growing, knows the whispers gather strength. But she knows also that her only path is forward, steady, without showing a single crack. You look at Senamut, the architect she trusts beyond all others. He too hears the rumors. He too senses danger. He still works, still shapes her visions into stone. Yet in his eyes you see worry. He knows envy may not strike only at Hatshepsut, but at him as well, the one closest to her. And you know the shadow spreads faster. You walk through the market and hear the people. They speak of wealth, of good harvest, of goods from Punt. They are grateful, they are happy. Yet some whisper that Pharaoh builds too much for herself, that statues and reliefs are more about her name than the gods. Doubt, once planted, grows like a crack in stone, small at first, but spreading. You watch Thutmose train with soldiers. The boy is gone. He is strong now, his gaze fierce. He learns sword and bow, each move sharp and sure. And you know within him is a wish, one day to rule with his own hand, no longer as a shadow behind his aunt. You breathe deeply and feel the air heavier. The sky over Egypt still shines, the Nile still flows, temples still stand. Yet in your heart you hear other sounds. The low hum of envy, the weaving of intrigue, the quiet rasp of blades being sharpened. Together they form a slow, uneasy song. And you know the shadows after light have begun. Not from outside, but from within Egypt, born of jealousy, of ambition kept to witness what history has hidden beneath the carvings of stone. Chapter 12. The Final Years. When time and destiny speak. You still hear the whispers of shadow inside the palace, the envy, the unfinished intrigues. Yet time, like the Nile, never stops. It carries away the light and the darkness toward the inevitable end. Hatshepsut, the woman who once changed everything, now steps into the final years of her life. And you remain there, a silent witness, watching each moment of a reign both brilliant and fragile. Time moves forward. The monuments still stand. Deir el-Bahari still shines beneath the sun. The reliefs of the voyage to Punt still tell of peace and prosperity. But the black hair now carries silver strands. The steps, once firm, now sometimes falter. And you see that even Pharaoh cannot overcome the rhythm of time. Hatshepsut spends more hours in the temples. You see her climb the long stairs slowly, her hand brushing the columns, her eyes fixed on the statue of Amun. She no longer needs to prove herself. She only seeks silence, the company of the gods in the days that remain. You hear her prayers, slow and deep, like a farewell song. Thutmose III has grown. His eyes gleam sharp as a blade. He is no longer the child in his aunt's shadow. He has become a warrior, a leader waiting for his moment. You see him sit in the council, silent, but his gaze always set upon Hatshepsut. In that gaze is respect, and also urgency, and you know change is near. Inside the palace, the whispers rise again. Some say the time has come for power to return to its rightful place. Some murmur that Thutmose will not wait longer. Yet all speak in shadows. Before Hatshepsut, they still bow, still swear loyalty. And you understand that silence is often more dangerous than open defiance. You follow her on a quiet night. She sits before the garden pool, moonlight reflecting on her lined face. You hear her sigh, soft as passing wind. She knows time is short. She knows destiny is near. Yet in her eyes, you do not see fear. You see acceptance, gentle as flowing water. You walk with her to Deir el-Bahari one last time. The high walls, the strong columns, all seem to listen. She places her hand on the relief that shows her with Amun. She smiles. Not for others, but for herself. Because she knows that even if one day the carvings are defaced and her name erased, these walls once carried her breath faint. Beside her faithful servants stand, priests whisper prayers. Outside, the wind passes the walls like a call of fate. And then, in perfect stillness, the last breath leaves her. You hear muffled cries, the beat of drums marking morning once again. But this time you feel something else. Not only loss. It is the closing of an age. Thutmose III takes the throne, no longer in her shadow. His eyes are steady, his will firm. He will open a new chapter. Yet you know that deep within, no new chapter can erase the one before. Even if he orders her name struck from stone, even if her image is scraped from reliefs, history still remembers. And you, who stand here, know truth never disappears. You step outside the palace beneath a sky of stars. The Nile flows, temples stand, the wind carries the scent of incense. Yet in that space you hear a new silence, the silence of one who has departed, the silence of history after light has gone. You close your eyes and breathe slowly, letting her memory drift with the wind. And you hear her name once more, quiet but clear. Hatshepsut, the woman who dared to take the throne. The woman who once turned history into a dream. The woman who now belongs to eternity. Chapter 13. Erasing the name of a pharaoh, hatred or politics. You are still standing in the silence of history, where the last breath of Hatshepsut has dissolved into the wind. The palace has changed. There is no more laughter, no graceful presence, only emptiness. A hollow space that time quickly fills with new footsteps. Thutmose III, now grown, takes the throne, with no shadow above him. From that moment, Egypt enters a different chapter, one of new light, but also of darkness that covers the memory of Hatshepsut. You walk through Karnak. The reliefs are still there, carved with Hatshepsut beside the god Amun, carved with her in the form of Pharaoh wearing crown and false beard. But then the hammer falls. You hear chisels, stone breaking. Her image fades, her face erased, her name scratched away. You stand in the dust, your heart aching, for they are erasing her name, erasing her presence, as if she had never been Pharaoh. You hear the whispers of the people. They ask why. Why erase a Pharaoh who brought peace and prosperity? Some say it was hatred. That Tutmosis III carried resentment from his youth when he lived beneath her shadow. Some say it was the hieroglyphs, broken, unbalanced. You touch the rough marks, cold beneath your hand. You feel the intent. This is not natural forgetting. This is deliberate, born of fear and envy. You hear the priests chanting prayers, but her name is absent, as if she had never existed, as if she were only a shadow erased from the grand story. Yet you, walking this dream, know the truth. You witnessed her steps, her monuments, her journeys, carved in stone. You know memory cannot be erased with chisels. You see Thutmosis III in the years that follow, becoming one of the greatest military pharaohs, expanding Egypt into empire. People praise him, yet inside the praise you hear a faint echo, an emptiness, a question left unanswered. Why must the memory of such a radiant pharaoh be buried? You step into the darkness of a tomb left unfinished. It was said to be for Senenmut, her loyal architect and companion. The walls are incomplete, the paintings left unfinished. You feel the break, as if time and human hands together decided her memory and those close to her must disappear. Yet even in the unfinished stone, you sense devotion, the shadow of one who was trusted beyond all. The wind moves through the stone towers, carrying faint fragrance of incense, carrying whispers. No matter how they carve, no matter how they replace, her name still lingers. Hatshepsut. It cannot be fully erased, for it is carved in the hearts of her people, in the memory of the land, in the drifting sand of the desert. You walk to the Nile. The river still flows, still feeds the fields, still carries life to Egypt. It once flowed beneath her reign, once carried ships home from Punt, and it flows still, reminding you that all passes, but memory lives with the earth and sky. You close your eyes, letting the wind brush your face. You know the question of who ordered her erasure and why may never have one answer. But you understand her existence itself frightened them. She proved that a woman could be Pharaoh, could rule with peace, could create a golden age. That truth, to those afraid of change, was more dangerous than any army. You breathe slowly, hearing your heartbeat echo with time. You know her name was cut from stone, but not from history, not from the memory carried forward. And you, listening now, reliving her story, are proof that she remains. In the final silence you hear one word, carried across the centuries. Hatshepsut. The woman erased from stone, but carved forever. Though it can conceal, can never destroy all. Like the Nile still flowing, like the sun still rising, truth always finds its way back. And you know her story did not end in shadow. It only slept, waiting for the day it would be awakened by hands from another age. You move with time as thousands of years pass. Egypt's empire falls. Greece and Rome take hold. The desert sands bury temples. Her monuments sink into silence and are forgotten. Travelers pass the valley, glance at broken walls, but no longer know the name of the one who once ruled. The hieroglyphs are unreadable. She fades into a shadow, hidden in dust. Then the 19th century arrives. You see European expeditions stepping onto Egyptian soil. They walk across the desert with maps in hand, their eyes shining as stone columns rise from the sand. They marvel at pyramids, the Sphinx, Karnak, and they ask, who built all this? Who ruled this land? Who left behind such vast marks? You see Jean-François Champollion, who unlocked hieroglyphs through the Rosetta Stone. He bends over inscriptions, his eyes glowing as each symbol comes alive. And with that, history opens again. The names of pharaohs return, dynasties take shape, stories reconnect. Among them, faint but present, fragments of a female pharaoh. You walk with archaeologists into the valley of Deir el-Bahari. They brush sand from stairways, raise fallen columns, shine lanterns into dark halls. They find reliefs scarred and faces erased, names replaced. Yet with patience they see the traces. They realize someone once ruled. Someone once was deliberately erased. You hear their voices. Could there have been a female pharaoh? A woman who ruled as king? At first they doubt, but the deeper they dig, the clearer the truth becomes. Surviving inscriptions, fragments of stelia, notes from Karnak, all whisper the same name: Hatshepsut. You see Howard Carter, the famous archaeologist, entering the Valley of the Kings. Though he is remembered for Tutankhamun, he and his peers also traced other tombs. They found KV-20, the oldest tomb known in the valley, first built for Thutmose I, then for Hatshepsut herself. Inside, walls damaged, yet still bearing evidence, broken stones telling of a female pharaoh once buried there, her remains later moved. You stand in the dim chamber. The lamplight glows on scarred walls. But in a hidden corner, a sign remains, a mark a hand did not erase. Cut away for millennia, rose once more in the light. You feel the emotion of the researchers. For centuries, she was silenced, yet truth found its way out. No hand could erase everything, no scheme could bury it all. Like a seed in sand waiting to sprout, Hatshepsut returned from shadow. You walk out of the museum into modern Cairo. Traffic hums, people move quickly. Yet beyond it the pyramids still stand. Her monuments endure. Deir el-Bahari, though scarred, still rises against the cliffs. Tourists climb the steps, look up in awe. They read her name on plaques, hear her story from guides. They learn that once there was a woman, a pharaoh, who defied all to carve her name into stone. You take a deep breath. The desert wind is the same. The resin scent lingers in memory. You know her legacy is not just in blocks of stone or carved reliefs. It is the lesson that truth, even buried, will rise again. That light, even veiled by shadow, finds a path to shine. You close your eyes, letting the wind move through your hair, your heartbeat joining the murmur of history. And in that stillness, you hear her name again, no longer in darkness, but in the brightness of a new day. Hatshepsut, Pharaoh. The woman returned from silence. Chapter 15. KV-20, the first tomb in the Valley of the Kings. You are still standing in the new light of history, where Hatshepsut's name has returned after thousands of years of erasure. But to truly understand her legacy, you must go deeper, into darkness, into the earth itself, where she was laid to rest. Her tomb carries the number KV20, the oldest tomb in the Valley of the Kings. And as you descend step by step into its depths, you are not only entering an archaeological site, you are entering the heart of a hidden story, one both magnificent and tragic. You see the entrance of KV20 carved directly into the mountainside, narrow and steep. A corridor that feels endless as it leads you into shadow. The stone steps are worn smooth by the hands and tools of ancient workers. You place your hand against the wall, the chill of stone sinking into your skin. The air inside is thick and heavy, as if holding on to the last breath of forgotten souls. The passage twists and winds, longer and deeper than other tombs of its age. KV20 is unlike the neat, straight tombs that came later. It is a labyrinth, a winding path into the depths of the earth. They say its design carried sacred meaning, reflecting the soul's journey through darkness to the realm of Osiris. And as you walk through, each step feels as if you too are joining that hieroglyphs naming Thutmose I, father of Hatshepsut. And you understand KV20 was not only her place of rest, it was the place she sought to lie beside her father, the man she revered, the one whose spirit gave her the will to rule. You stand in the burial chamber, dark and solemn. Here once rested the sarcophagi of both Thutmose I and Hatshepsut, massive red granite coffins inscribed with the journey to the afterlife. You run your hand across the rough stone, knowing this chamber once held the body of one of Egypt's most extraordinary rulers. Yet you also know in time the remains were disturbed, the coffins violated, the legacy buried in neglect. You hear the whisper of wind threading through the passage. It carries unspoken questions. Why did she choose this place? Was it to remain forever close to her father, to prove the legitimacy of her reign? Was it to anchor her rule to the power of the past? Or was it simply her faith that the deepest rock of the mountain would guard her memory from destruction? Whatever the answer, her choice made KV20 unique, a symbol impossible to mistake. You remember the moment archaeologists stepped inside after thousands of years. They bent low, brushing dust from fragments of stone, tracing faded carvings, reading half-buried glyphs. And from that darkness, a name emerged: Hatshepsut. After more than 3 millennia, her name was spoken again in human voice, and in that instant, history trembled. You close your eyes and imagine the funeral long ago. Torches blazing, priests chanting prayers, incense thick in the air. The heavy sarcophagus lowered into place beside that of her father. Outside, mourners wept. Inside, solemn words carried her spirit to the gods. You see the flicker of torchlight on carved walls, her figure glowing in the firelight, before fading into shadow. Yet you also witness the hands that came later, breaking, erasing, desecrating. The coffins forced open, the body moved, the inscriptions hammered away. KV20, once sacred, turned into silence. You hear the echo of chisels from centuries past, and you know it was not only stone that suffered, it was history itself. You sit on the cold floor. The air is heavy. Yet within you there is a strange stillness. You realize KV20 is not only a tomb, it is a symbol of eternity and fragility, of the longing for immortality, and the truth that even pharaohs can be forgotten. You breathe slowly, letting the sound of wind merge with the beating of your heart. And you hear a whisper: Hatshepsut. Not from inscriptions, not from coffins, but from the emptiness itself. an emptiness that held silence for 3,000 years, an emptiness that now. Chapter 16. The legacy of Hatshepsut in the modern world, a symbol of womanhood and timeless wisdom. You are still standing in the shadows of KV-20, where the long, cold corridors have held the memory of Hatshepsut in silence for more than 3,000 years. You hear the whisper of wind, the slide of sand across stone steps, as if time itself has not released her. But then you lift your eyes. Light streams down from the entrance. You walk upward slowly, step by step, and you know you are leaving the depths of the earth, stepping into another world. A world not of pyramids and temples, but of museums, books, classrooms, and people searching to rediscover truth. You move into the 19th century, where European explorers first stood astonished before the grandeur of Egypt. They gazed at Karnak, at Luxor, at the Valley of the Kings, and among the ruins they uncovered fragments carrying the name of Hatshepsut. At first her name was a shadow, scattered in texts like echoes. But slowly, through the hands of scholars, the image of a female pharaoh began to rise again. You see Champollion trembling as he decoded hieroglyphs and realized there were passages describing a woman pharaoh. You see archaeologists with oil lamps and notebooks bending low over walls scarred and broken, piecing together symbols, letters, fragments. And from the darkness of forgetting, the name Hatshepsut returned, sharper and brighter with every discovery. You step into the 20th century. In universities, professors speak of a female pharaoh who built the temple of Deir el-Bahari, who sent great ships to Punt, who ruled with peace. Students sit silently, eyes wide, realizing history was not written only by war and by men. History was also written by the soft wisdom of a woman. You enter the Cairo Museum. In one gallery her mummy rests. After thousands of years her body is seen again. The plaque reads, Pharaoh Hatshepsut, the first great queen of ancient Egypt. Visitors gather around, silent, some with sighs, some moved to tears. For they are witnessing the impossible, a woman erased from history, now standing again before their eyes. You travel further to the great cities of the world. In museums of Paris, London, New York, statues of Hatshepsut are displayed. People gaze at her carved face, her solemn smile, her bright eyes. They whisper to one another, "This is the woman Pharaoh. This is the one who dared to walk against all expectation." You hear the voices of feminist scholars. They call her proof that since the dawn of time, women have held power, have built, have created peace. They compare her to modern leaders. They say children read about her in school books. Women speak of her as inspiration, and you understand. Hatshepsut has returned not only to history, but into the living mind of humanity. You close your eyes and hear the whispers. They are no longer the winds in the corridor of KV-20, but the voices of millions of people. They speak her name with reverence. They call her Pharaoh, Pathfinder, proof of wisdom beyond time. You see clearly that her legacy is not only in stone, not only in temples. It is in the idea that greatness is not bound by gender. It is in the belief that wisdom and resolve can create a golden age. And it is in the hope that history, though twisted and silenced, will always find a way to reveal the truth. You breathe slowly, letting your heart join the rhythm of time. You know this journey has come to its end, but her name has not. It still echoes across desert sand, across stone corridors, across museum halls, across human memory. And you hear clearly, one last time, the voice rising within you. Hatshepsut, Pharaoh, the woman who crossed time, the woman who stepped from light into shadow, and from shadow returned again to eternal light. You have walked with us through a long journey, from the whispers of the Nile to the silence of KV-20, from the blazing light of temples to the quiet where her name was buried. Now let your eyes close. Let your mind grow lighter. Let this story dissolve into your sleep like a gentle wind sweeping sand across the desert. If you are still awake, leave us a message. Tell us where you are listening from. Tell us your time zone. Tell us which chapter carried you most softly into sleep. And remember, history never truly sleeps. It only waits for someone to tell it again. May your night be peaceful.